Chapter 6. Wait, GLaDOS did what? The right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world. The G-Man. How to Survive the Everfree Forest. Written by Fluttershy. Edited by Angel Bunny. The Everfree Forest. A claustrophobic jungle full of bloodthirsty monsters, unusual weather, and ancient ruins that only the boldest or dumbest of Equestria would dare to traverse. Though the average traveler would find a town built right next to this perilous forest to be crazy, the denizens of either side keep to themselves for the most part. If one would dare step inside the boundaries of the Everfree, they are placed in immediate danger. You might as well slather yourself in barbecue sauce. To the naked eye, one would see that this is nothing more than a spooky woodland inhabited by strange, isolated creatures. But to the experts who are amicable with the land, they know the hidden creatures. The stalkers. From the treetops to underground, nowhere is safe in the Everfree. Has the constant chirp of the crickets ceased? Don't be fooled, you've got a Sasquatch on your tail. Gross, what happened to that poor goat? Keep on your toes, that's a chupacabra in the area. What is that horrible smell? If you're in the Everfree, odds are that it's the raunchy odor of a Crinshaw's undead flesh. There is nothing in that forbidden jungle that would be willing to pass up a tasty meal. This guide has been written so you can keep your friends and families safe when camping in the Everfree Forest, if that's what you're doing. If not, then I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. Scootaloo, are you sure about this? Sweetie Belle asked nervously, trying to focus on levitating the guide before her. The minty green glow shimmering around the book flickered, betraying the unicorn's still budding magical talents. The addressed filly looked over her shoulder. Totally. We find the turtle, bring it back to Fluttershy, and bam! Cutie marks. Didn't we already try something like this? Apple Bloom pointed out. Then the memory suddenly came back. Yeah, we did! And then a cockatrice attacked and Fluttershy saved us. The survival guide slammed shut, ensuing a smack that echoed throughout the encompassing trees. All right, this book is terrible, Sweetie stated, laboriously levitating the book into her saddlebag. I'm sorry, but Fluttershy can't be an author. Why? What's wrong? The Pegasus filly asked rhetorically, putting much of her attention into trying to find Fluttershy's turtle. Well, it was more of a gradual thing. I mean, at the Dragons page, the only words were, stay away, dangerous, do not approach. Write to the princess if you come across a dormant dragon. The other fillies laughed at Sweetie's over-exaggerated impersonation of Fluttershy. So I was thinking, okay, this is just Fluttershy being herself. But as I got further into the book, at the Manticore page, it said, show a little kindness. What? Scootaloo burst out with laughter. What? Kindness? She said in disbelief, trying to catch her breath. That ain't nice, girls, the custard-colored earth pony scolded, staring at her friends with a shamed glare. You know how Fluttershy is, and maybe she's right. The Pegasus filly's laughter died out, followed by a cryptic remark. Yeah, okay. Say we find a manticore. It's hungry, hasn't eaten in days, and lo and behold, it spots 3 supple little fillies to snack on. Scootaloo, quit it! Sweetie ordered, her eyes nervously darting around the twisted claw-like branches of the enclosing trees. The sunset-shaded Pegasus ignored her friend's pleas. You walk up to it, Apple Bloom, just to see what happens. Show the hungry beast a little kindness. She shot the earth pony a dexterous grin. Then, it snaps! With emphasis, she jumped up in a shameful way to get a scare out of her friends. While it reduced Sweetie Belle to screaming, Apple Bloom was unfazed by her friend's pitiful attempts at scaring her. After being friends for 2 years, Apple Bloom grew resilient to Scootaloo's foolish scare tactics. But Sweetie Belle, on the other hand, quivered with fear. What the adolescent also learned was scolding Scootaloo is like questioning Pinkie Pie. It hurts your brain, and in the end you realize you've wasted your time. Instead, Apple Bloom smirked and counterclaimed with, I think if we came across a starving manticore, it'd go for the chicken first. Sweetie Belle giggled softly, whereas Scootaloo's face flushed angrily. Whatever, you're no fun anymore. Yeah, grow up, Scoots. Anyway, who remembers the turtle's name? Mary Shelley, Sweetie recalled. Wanting to get a better view of the area, Scootaloo made a futile attempt at flying by jumping in the air and buzzing her callow wings. Growling at her failure, the flightless Pegasus said, Well, I guess we're doing this on hoof. Here, Mary, here, girl, she turned and asked her friends. What sounds do turtles make? Um, clicking? The motley maned unicorn guessed. Her two friends shrugged in response and began clicking their mouths. Unbeknownst to the naive trio, their clicking attracted the attention of a dangerous predator within the everfree forest. Its pair of malice red eyes locked on the group, razor-filled beak dripping saliva zestfully. Its massive airfoils flapped, slow at first but gradually faster. The surrounding area, its perch in the trees, swayed and rustled among the increasing gales. After gaining enough speed, the monster leapt from its hideout and took flight, keeping close tabs on this magnanimous brunch. Why'd I agree to this? GLaDOS glanced up at her clock, annoyed to find that it was almost noon. 2 hours had gone by. 2 hours of Ditzy relaying several stories about her interesting life in Ponyville. Though by interesting, GLaDOS really meant the faint urge to stab herself in the head with an ice pick. It's not that she hated Ditzy. In fact, she found her to be one of the more tolerable residents of Ponyville. Tolerable does not mean friend, GLaDOS would always assure herself. She's just a fascinating specimen to simply watch, like a turtle trying to roll off its back. The problem with Ditzy Doo was, of course, her intelligence, or lack thereof. She'd tell GLaDOS the most bizarre of stories, trip over her own hooves, or simply zone out at random points in a conversation, like she had a legitimate condition. When GLaDOS asked Ditzy, jokingly of course, if she was dropped on her head as a baby, the wall-eyed pony nodded. For the past 3 days, GLaDOS had been holed up in her remote home in Ponyville, gladly taking up the nurse's advice on staying off her hooves for a few days in order to recover. She got around her house via use of a temporary wheelchair. She hated the wheelchair. Many accidents occurred when going up and down the stairs to her science lab. Luckily, the chair's need would be obsolete tomorrow. While the extended periods of time and peace had been nice, she always dreaded the morning when Ditzy Doo would deliver her mail and randomly delve into a topic of local news in Ponyville. Because the mailbox was out of commission, the mail had to be delivered through the front door. Why didn't GLaDOS just not answer the door? Well, she never considered not answering the door. After decades of opening doors for her test subjects, the whole gesture was kind of engraved into her brain. And so I said, muffins, and the next thing you know, I'm laying on the floor with my face in a bucket. Hilarious, right, Bored? GLaDOS, the Earth Pony said flatly, staring past Ditzy's head at the building blocks in the distance, reprehensibly named Ponyville. What? It's GLaDOS. I was pulling your leg earlier. I just wanted to see how long I could keep up the bored thing until you finally realized it's the dumbest and most unrealistic name ever, right up there with Twilight Sparkle. Waiting for a response, GLaDOS crossed her bandaged hind legs, trying to get them into a more comfortable position. After a brief moment of recollection, Ditzy said, "Oh," and she laughed. Well, I guess you got me. Her laugh trailed off awkwardly, realizing that her friend didn't find it quite as humorous. Ditzy's left eye, her good eye, glanced around absent-mindedly. She whistled to herself, then twisted her hoof in the doorstep as if she was waiting for a train. Seconds passed, then minutes. GLaDOS propped her elbow on her lap, then rested her chin on her hoof. It was quite possibly the most awkward situation in equestrian history. Out of the blue, GLaDOS randomly asked Ditzy, "Why are you doing this?" Huh? What do you mean? She cocked her head to the side, innocence displayed in the form of a curious smile. You only talk to me. And don't lie, I know you do. Down the street at the other 3 houses, you simply give the residents their mail and leave. But with me, you talk of the most asinine things that I honestly, truthfully do not care about. Ditzy blinked, processing what GLaDOS just said. Care to elaborate? The ash-colored pony tapped her chin, taking her time to think up a rather weak excuse. Well, I like to learn about who I'm delivering mail to. GLaDOS sighed, brushing several locks of hair out of her eyes. All right, I would believe you if it weren't for 2 things. One, you've yet to actually ask a single thing about me. The only thing you've asked me is what my favorite muffin is. Yeah, it's banana, I remember. Did you like it? The mailmare smiled, recalling the muffin she baked for GLaDOS yesterday. Actually, it was very good, thanks. Makes me wonder if those cutie marks actually even mean anything. It's hit or miss. You see, I got mine because I can blow a bubble that lasts 3 seconds longer than normal bubbles. She dropped her head for a brief moment, laughing at how ridiculous her special talent was. And look at me now. I'm a male mare, I bake, and I'm Her cheerful facade vanished, now adopting a sullen look. And that's it, she mumbled just loud enough for the chair-ridden mare to hear. GLaDOS nodded, intrigued by this pony's story. I see. Yep. Her expression never lifted, her good eyes still gazing at her hooves. GLaDOS didn't even need to ask what was wrong. She could read Ditzy like a book. Instead, she curtly said, "And second, it's Sunday. There is no mail on Sunday." The Pegasus knew she was caught. Her rock-filled mailbag wasn't fooling anybody. She'd have to come clean. I think I'm gonna... Ditzy's speech trailed off as her other eye, the derped one, caught sight of two mares sprinting down the path from the Everfree. A filly on her scooter tailed them, with a wagon carrying some cargo hitched behind. "Holy graham crackers!" Ditzy yelled, completely disregarding the fact that she was dead silent several moments ago. She then broke out into hysterical laughter. Who knew Flutters could do that? What? Do what? GLaDOS asked, slowly wheeling out of the door. Her heart immediately dropped like a stone at the sight of what the wagon was carrying. GLaDOS could feel her chest tighten and foreleg go numb as she saw the mares run up the path to her house, bringing the cargo-filled wagon even closer. The other mare, Rarity, nearly pounced on the broken pony. Her pristine mane was now disheveled, mangled into cringe-worthy twists and locks. Uncharacteristically, she didn't even care about her appearance at the moment. "GLaDOS! Oh, thanks, Celestia, you're here. I need your help." With pleading red eyes, she looked back at Fluttershy and motioned her closer. "Bring them in, Fluttershy. Oh, and please do be careful." The duo simultaneously shrilled, Ditzy in delight and GLaDOS in horror. "What in the name of Darwin is that?" Fluttershy carried the wagon with a sob-shaken Apple Bloom and Scootaloo trailing behind. Please let us explain." The wagon held two things. One of them was, of course, Sweetie Belle. Except she was a rock. Well, petrified to be exact. And behind her was quite possibly the most horrific thing GLaDOS has ever seen in her entire 68-year lifespan. "All right, GLaDOS, now don't scream or you'll just agitate it even more." Fluttershy spoke very slowly, like she was talking to a small child. Too late. Right as GLaDOS took in a deep breath to scream, Ditzy shoved a hoof in her mouth and shushed into her ear rather obnoxiously. "GLaDOS," Fluttershy began, carrying the wagon closer. "It's not a vulgar, vicious, Everfree cockatrice. It's a member of a subgroup. They're just simply a little..." Her glistening cyan eye slowly trailed up the beast's figure. Bigger. The cockatrice, or this cousin of a cockatrice, was unlike anything GLaDOS has ever seen before. It was about as big as Princess Celestia, maybe a bit taller. With the build of a griffin, its hind quarters resembled a lion's with a pelt of midnight blue fur. Its forelegs, bound together by a lengthy lace of vine, resembled an eagle's or rather related avian. The creature struggled against its bonds, evoking the vine to futilely dig into its taut leather-esque wrists. The cockatrice's massive, curved talons dug into its palms, drawing small trickles of blood. The creature's mighty 8-foot wingspan was bound together by a metal bar, clearly manipulated by magic. The monster attempted to let out a screech, though it only came out as a muffled whine due to another vine wrapped around its tooth-filled beak. As an extra precaution, a piece of cloth binded the beast. There was, of course, the notable feature shared between all cockatrices, the pale violet comb and wattles. These fleshy appendages distinguishing the monster appeared to be lacerated and shredded, like it had been through many battles with other denizens of the Everfree forest. Of course, with GLaDOS's already present fear of birds, she wasn't all too thrilled with having one presented to her like it was a Christmas present, let alone one that truly intends to kill. "Get that thing off my lawn. It's avian. Kill it. With fire. Poison it. I don't care." The mare locked up into her house like there was no tomorrow, only to be stopped by Ditzy. "It's fine, GLaDOS. Really. It's tied up, see? Hands off, bird brain. Yes, indeed this monstrosity is tied up. I'm not blind," she shot back. "What I want to know is, why are you bringing a giant flesh-eating bird to my house? Isn't this more of Twilight's thing?" GLaDOS squirmed in her seat, knowing the monster was glaring at her through the fabric, like it sensed her very presence. I'm gonna enjoy dissecting you. Fluttershy felt it was her duty to point out. Actually, cockatrices turn their victims to stone, then eat them. The minerals are healthy for their immune system. She closed her eyes and smiled brightly. Great, thanks, Steve Irwin. Now how about telling me why it's at my doorstep tied up? Rarity levitated a handkerchief to her face and dabbed away the mascara running down her face. It's Sweetie Belle. She's a rock, GLaDOS pointed out, wanting to get the elephant out of the room. Rarity sobbed loudly into her handkerchief, invoking Apple Bloom and Scootaloo to comfort her. This is all our fault. The cow filly wept into Rarity's leg. We should have never gone looking for that stupid turtle, the Pegasus filly added, trying her best not to cry, to not seem weak. You know what that is? GLaDOS asked to Scootaloo, who peered up with glossy violet eyes. That's failures talk. Are you a failure? The filly wiped her eyes and shook her head. Good. There's no point in crying over every little failure. Then you end up looking like an American. Are you an American, orange baby horse? Scootaloo rose an inquisitive brow and shook her head once more. I don't even know what an American is. You don't want to know. So what do you do if you fail? You try again, and again, and again until you get it right. GLaDOS smiled, knowing she just saved this world from having to support yet another belly-aching failure. Crack! Or maybe you feel good about showing a little kindness. You should do that more often. GLaDOS blinked several times, even batting her ear a bit to make sure she didn't mishear. I don't remember saying that. She's right, girls, Rarity said, her voice thick with emotion. It isn't your fault. You had the best of intentions, and that's all that matters. The wheelchair-bound pony couldn't pry her eyes away from the monster, just awaiting that fateful moment where it would lash out and slit her throat. With its mind, she knew how deadly birds could be. Their craftiness was unparalleled. Fluttershy stepped forward away from the thrashing cockatrice. Please, try and understand, GLaDOS. Sweetie Belle is Rarity's little sister, and she means the world to her. If GLaDOS wasn't flinching every time the monster moved, she'd have her trademark uninterested look. I know you think it's scary, but all it wants is to be left alone. Isn't that right, little guy? She gently pawed a hoof into the cockatrice's side, resonating in a strangled scream. Little guy? Okay. Every Pegasus seriously has something wrong with them. This thing looks like it wants to rip her throat out, tear flesh from bone, bathe in her blood. Actually, that sounds pretty exciting. I wonder if I can get Ditzy to cut the bonds and set it loose on this town. And I'll finally have a use for my telescope. Speaking of bonds, how'd you get that thing here anyway? She asked. Fluttershy blushed. Well... GLaDOS set Sweetie Belle on the coffee table. She placed the chest piece of a stethoscope on the filly's cold stone chest, occasionally sliding it across its coarse surface. No heartbeat, not even a pulse. Interesting. She scribbled some notes on a notepad, then removed the stethoscope. GLaDOS gently placed a hoof on Sweetie Belle's forehead, then flipped it over. Not even warm. Fascinating. I guess this giant chicken really does turn you to stone. GLaDOS tapped her chin with the pen, then wrote another observation. If there's no pulse, then how does the equine not lose brain cells? She peered over her shoulder at the groggy cockatrice lying on her kitchen table like a big feathery mattress. The beast was sterilized through an injection of crushed fire flowers and poisonous moon drops. It's amazing what you can find in your own backyard. At least I was able to test something yesterday, even though it was high school science level research. But this... She smiled with glee at the multitude of tests and experiments this creature could bring forth. This is what I live for. GLaDOS really didn't want to make a mess in her kitchen, but there was no way in hell she'd be able to carry that thing upstairs to her science lab in a wheelchair. So instead she shot a portal upstairs and placed the other beside her makeshift workstation. The mayor rushed to the table knowing she had little time before Twilight and her friends would return and shut this whole experiment down. On the counter behind her was an old copy of How to Survive the Everfree, with the book opened up to an entry on cockatrices. GLaDOS rolled over to the other side of the table, pinning one of the cockatrice's jostling legs to check if, yep, you're a male. She snuck in another peek between the monster's legs, degrading the poor thing even further. And a rather unimpressive one at that. She scribbled a speculated measurement, then looked back at the blindfolded creature who had slipped into unconsciousness. Didn't even register what GLaDOS had said. The scientist narrowed her eyes at the unresponsive test subject. I prefer it when my test subjects can actually understand what I'm saying, she shrugged. At least I'm back to doing what I love. She picked up a bone saw and placed a doctor's mask over her muzzle. So let's see what makes you tick, my disgusting feathered friend. The instant GLaDOS started carving into the cockatrice like a Thanksgiving turkey, it immediately reacted via screaming and kicking. The mare pressed a foreleg on its wing while the other continued sawing. Ugh, it's like sawing through a hippopotamus, I think. The cockatrice's skin had the consistency and durability of leather, which was appropriate, but that just made the whole process all the more difficult. No, it's like sawing through a sofa with a spoon. Eventually, the cockatrice was in enough pain to snap open its once secured beak and let out a blood-curdling scream, snapping the vine like dental floss. GLaDOS had to throw herself onto the beast from her chair to prevent it from escaping. I'd nuke a country just to get some restraints for this damn thing. By the time she was halfway down its chest, with blood spurting from every thrust of the saw, the cockatrice opened its jaws wide enough to swallow a bowling ball. But no scream was unleashed. Instead, a strange mist-like gas seeped through its throat. Whatever the mist made contact with, in this case the kitchen wallpaper, instantly turned to stone. The creature's aim was sporadic, trying to hit GLaDOS while creating stone zigzags on her kitchen wall. She reacted quickly enough to slam her wrist into the beast's throat, causing it to choke. Just a little more. GLaDOS's arm began to tire, making her loathe her organic vessel even more. Am I almost done? GLaDOS was so busy trying not to turn into a lawn ornament that she wasn't really focusing on the cutting. She realized the bone saw was only halfway through the stomach. GLaDOS's eye twitched, not realizing that the cockatrice was getting ready to blast another round of its petrifying mist. GLaDOS noticed this and nearly lost her mind. Oh, you've got to be kidding me! She threw one hind leg over the cockatrice's belly so that she was face to face with the beast. GLaDOS grasped the bone saw in both hooves and held it over her head, letting out a defying scream just as the avian emitted its gas-like spell. The mare jammed the bone saw down the beast's throat, resonating in several repulsive gurgles from the beast's gullet. GLaDOS twisted the saw, then tore it from the cockatrice's esophagus, and painted her wall a new coat of scarlet in the process. The monster let out a final twitch in its claws, then went limp. GLaDOS angrily chucked the splattered medical tool into the sink. Now, GLaDOS is a being of patience. She's cold, calculating, always judging test subjects from afar, but never afraid to take physical action in an experiment when necessary. The difference between that and now is that she was once a powerful, near indestructible machine, armed to the teeth with legions of loyal turrets, her wits, and a yacht of neurotoxin. Here, she's a powerless organic, as an equine no less, armed with only her wit turned sheer stupidity, intelligence that doesn't really help in a world run by magic, and of course, brute strength. And she has the durability of a china cabinet. So it makes sense that after this tiresome battle won with her weakest skills, GLaDOS lazily slumped back into her blood-sopped wheelchair, ripped off her soaked doctor's mask, placed a hoof over her aching elbow, and shouted into the heavens, "By great Aristotle's beard, that was awful!" She panted heavily, already penitent of her extraneous outburst. This place really is changing me, and I can't fight it. Ugh, I feel like scum. She eyed her blood-caked body, growing nauseous at the raunchy odor of the beast's innards. So this is what an organic smells like? Dear Lord Almighty, open a window! GLaDOS cycled to the window stationed above the sink and pushed it open, allowing the room to fume out. She took a brief moment of respite, disconcerted with how different testing was when you're no longer an all-powerful supercomputer. What used to be, that was the life. No, GLaDOS thought with certainty. I'm not letting this place change me. I'm finishing this experiment, even if it kills me. Hopefully. GLaDOS slowly turned the knob, knowing these ponies would probably serve her up on a silver platter just for having the best of intentions. Well, in her eyes they were the best of intentions. Well, I've had a good run. It was a good run until Shell came along and screwed everything up anyway. She came to a relieved surprise to find not Twilight and Rarity at the door, but instead Ditzy, Vinyl Scratch, and, and who are you? She rose an inquisitive brow at the asphalt-colored earth pony. I'm Octavia, remember? At the store. GLaDOS narrowed her eyes wide in realization as she silently said, "Oh yeah," to herself. Why are you covered in blood? The former Canterloin cringed at the red-white earth pony, but wasn't as prissy as Rarity was about a little filth. I'm a candy cane, can't you tell? She replied sarcastically. Vinyl and Ditzy shared a small chuckle, whereas Octavia rolled her eyes. All right, GLaDOS continued. No time to explain. It's cockatrice blood. Long story, I need time, as in a lot of time. I promise I'll make it worth your while if you help me. She spoke fairly concisely, very urgently. Vinyl, not really sensing the seriousness of the situation, casually replied with, Sure, just spill it. Okay, GLaDOS said in a secretive tone, ushering the mares to lean in a little closer. I need you three to stand watch out here. No one gets in. I don't care how you handle this. Tea party, kill 'em, I don't care. Just don't let anyone get in. Understand? The three ponies nodded hesitantly. Vinyl slowly reached behind her and pulled out a novelty buzzsaw imprinted with record decals. Octavia narrowed her eyes and smacked it into the bushes. Good. Any questions? Three hooves shot into the air. Okay, I'll just go out on a limb here. Yes, this is legal. No, I'm not a candy cane. Yes, you can be one too if you'd like, just not right now. The trio lowered their hooves, expressing looks of both relief and eagerness. GLaDOS continued. All right, just do your job and you will be rewarded. Fail, she adopted a darker tone. And, well, there's nothing I can do. If you fail, I die. The pony stared at her, dumbfounded. What are you talking about, GLaDOS? What do you mean you die? Ditzy cried. What about us? She buzzed towards GLaDOS and grabbed her by her shoulders, almost lifting her off the ground. Ugh, why can't you things take a hint of sarcasm? GLaDOS tossed her head back, groaning into the cloud-filled sky. Smiling sheepishly, Ditzy carefully lowered the science pony into her chair. Seriously, stop being so dense. I'm not getting killed, and neither are you. Well, that's a lie, sort of. These misfits, are clearly unfit for society, except for the octave one. She's okay, but still, it's an easy job. All you need is a block and an axe. Basket is optional if you don't care about a mess. Don't worry, dear, Octavia assured her. We won't let you down. I'll do whatever it takes to get the job done. She paused, then quickly added, and I care not for any specific reward. Knowing I'm finally making myself useful is reward enough. Very well. GLaDOS turned to the other two who were engaged in a losing battle of rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot! Vinyl droned as she and Ditzy pumped their hooves in rhythm. Shoot, tie again. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot! And it's a tie again! It's always a tie. We don't have fingers, the Pegasus pointed out very profoundly. One more time, the DJ begged like her life was on the line. Rock, paper, scissors? You're an idiot, Vinyl, Ditzy proclaimed, throwing her hooves into the air. Octavia couldn't help but burst out laughing. Teasingly she asked, Burned by Ditzy. How do you feel, cousin? Enough! GLaDOS barked, her eyes scanning the road for any signs of Twilight and her friends. Enough of your incessant bickering. I need to concentrate, so do your job. Ditzy and Vinyl ceased their arguing in an instant and immediately fell in line like soldiers at a boot camp. Octavia, still grasping what little dignity she had left, stayed where she was positioned and dutifully held her nose high. GLaDOS turned and slammed the door behind her, returning to her little project. Oh, well, they're a moronic bunch, but hey, they're faithful. The same can't be said about other companions. All right, I'm not gonna lie here. The odds of me fixing this are about 1,000,000,000 to 4, and that was some rather generous rounding on my part. But if I know biology, which is about as basic as it gets, I know the important thing to do would be. GLaDOS smacked herself in the forehead, trying to formulate a plan, a cure to fix this. Come on, think. There's a cure for everything, right? Except the plague. Sometimes you'll have to follow it back to its roots, except the plague. But still, for everything else, there's always a cure from its source. That's basic logic 101. Her gaze swapped from the tray of medical tools to the gored remains of the cockatrice. I'll have to dig deeper into this thing. Great. Hopefully I don't catch a disease. Or if I do, it's hopefully one that plagues the town. GLaDOS reluctantly picked up the bone saw. Its crimson handle almost slipped from her grip. Once again, she began slicing through the bird's lacerated gullet. For the first time in her life, GLaDOS didn't even want to look at what she was doing. Every artery snapped, every squishy and squashy of metal grinding against flesh was just nails on a chalkboard, not to mention the nauseating smell. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. Throughout this whole experiment, GLaDOS repeatedly muttered to herself, "It's just for science. Come on, you can do this. You're doing these morons a favor." She couldn't help but periodically glance up at the door. I shouldn't have trusted those morons with such a crucial assignment. I just shouldn't. I'm making a mockery of science itself. GLaDOS ferociously pounded her hooves into the beast's open stomach, sobbing into its dark, pigmented feathers. Crack! You call yourself a scientist? Get the hell out of here! You'll never amount to anything. Get out of my sight! So, what makes you eligible of joining Aperture Innovations, Miss Karine? GLaDOS picked her head up and angrily wiped her eyes. What was that? What's wrong with me? No, a better question would be, who was that? I didn't catch a name. Her gaze darted around the room at the dissected cockatrice, at the medical tools, and at Sweetie Belle. Well, whoever that was must have been a terrible scientist. Smiling with confidence, she grabbed a scalpel from the medical tray and began making an incision around the beast's uncovered eyes. And I'm not like her. I don't give up that easily. In the short time GLaDOS returned to her work, her 3 bodyguards were confronted by a group of very bewildered ponies. Twilight Sparkle, accompanied by Rarity, Rainbow, Pinky, and Fluttershy, came bolting down the path. Equestria's fastest flyer ran into a jump, then flew up a hill. She didn't even stop to acknowledge the 3 mares standing guard, determined to stop GLaDOS from any insane plan she had for Sweetie Belle. Right as Rainbow was about to breach the door, there was a violent tug at her tail, and she tumbled to the ground. Vinyl's horn dispelled its dark red glow just as Octavia helped the downed Pegasus up. Rainbow jerked away from the Earth Pony's gesture and said, "Hey, what's the big idea? What the hey are you doing?" "Hey, no one gets in. Not until GLaDOS says so." Ditsy stood on her hind legs with her forelegs outstretched, shielding the door with her body. Rainbow smacked herself in the forehead. "You've got to be kidding me." "Trust me," Vinyl started, walking up beside Ditsy and standing on her hind legs as well. "If this was a joke, I'd be laughing. We ain't moving." The rest of the group caught up to Rainbow just as she was about to explain. "Come on, girls! GLaDOS is dangerous. You're really letting her hold Rarity's sister hostage?" "She's helping her!" Vinyl snapped, breaking her laid-back demeanor. "I don't expect you to understand, Rainbow. You've always been the one with the bigger mouth than her brain." "You want to say that to my face?" the Pegasus spat, taking a fighting stance in the air. "She just did," Ditsy countered flatly, now sitting on her flank with an innocent smile on her face. "What's going on here?" Twilight asked intrusively. Rainbow landed beside her friends and said, "They're not letting us get to GLaDOS. She has Sweetie Belle in there." "My little sister!" Rarity cried, pushing through the group and confronting the trio. "Please, girls, I have to see my sister. Ditsy, please, you had a daughter. You should understand." Rarity covered her mouth, immediately regretting her words. Ditsy bared her teeth like a savage and slammed her flank into the unicorn's side, knocking her into the rest of the group like bowling pins. "How dare you bring my little muffin into this?" The faded gray pony would have torn her apart if Vinyl Scratch didn't encase her in a restricting red glow. "Chillax, Dee Dee, this isn't how it should go down." Octavia stepped forward, getting ready to assist the downed ponies. "Yes, I do believe we should try to be civil about—" Just when things could get any worse, Pinkie Pie squeezed from the bottom of the pile in a random burst of confetti. "Yeah! Woohoo! Let's do that again!" The once well-mannered Octavia was gone now. She practically went berserk at this point. "You?" "Yep, me! the party pony yipped, unaware of the imminent danger she was in. Octavia took an angry step forward. You unrepentant, uncouth pile of... Primary organs seem to be in the right place. Main stomach full of smooth grindstones. These grindstones are very fragile, and inside is a sort of green paste that may contain healthy nutrients. Refusal to confirm this. Secondary stomach attached to main stomach and heart. Release of petrifying mist upon incision. The heart seems to pump the needed energy while grindstones in primary stomach conjure up the mist. Then it leaves the mouth, freezes target, and the cycle repeats. As GLaDOS continued making observations, she heard a disturbance outside. Oh no, they're here. What am I gonna... No, you are to remain calm and finish this test like a scientist, not like a coward crying in her room. Anyway, where was I? Oh yes, the eyes. Along with the other organs splayed out on the table, with flies buzzing around the aroma, the cockatrice's eyes were lined up before GLaDOS, looking away from her, of course. What struck the knowledge-hungry mare as peculiar was how the eyes seemed to not affect inanimate objects. I should write that down. Eyes affect only organics. Mist affects both and probably takes up a lot of energy and used only as a last resort. GLaDOS took her scalpel and made a gentle slice through each eye down the middle. The layouts of those wondrous trinkets were probably the most complex part of the cockatrice's anatomy. GLaDOS couldn't stop smiling. I think I'm getting somewhere with this. About time. But first, she looked at the small, blueberry-sized orb sitting on the tray. I need my microscope. Whoa! What did I do? Pinky cried out defensively, hurt and confused at the enraged mare before her. What did you do? What did you do? You ruined my life, that's what! Octavia had a murderous look in her eyes. She probably would have gone through with it too if Vinyl and Ditzy had not restrained her. Rainbow Dash wrapped a protective foreleg around the sniveling pony and said, Your cousin's crazy, Vinyl. Pinky would never do something like that. Hey, don't call my family crazy, the addressed mare fumed. She destroyed my career, Octavia screamed. Hot, angry tears slid down her face. Play the pony pokey, it'll be fun, she squealed, mocking Pinky's voice. I had no choice, because I'd get fired for not fulfilling the wishes of a friend of Celestia's student. So I was fired for doing my job. Thanks a lot! Octavia broke down crying while Pinky walked behind her friends with a heavy heart. Fluttershy briskly flew past her friends and calmly rubbed Octavia's shoulder, gently hushing her. Shh, it's okay. The musician pushed Fluttershy away, causing her to cower back to her friends. Don't shush me! You're just as guilty as she is for ruining the gala! Twilight's face brightened up as she said, Oh yeah, now I remember. Yeah, forgot about that, didn't you? Octavia growled. While you and your fat friends were munching donuts with Her Royal Highness, those boring ponies were panicking, hiding under tables, trying to avoid getting mauled by those stupid animals. And by the way, where the hay was the guard on duty? I'm sorry, Fluttershy whispered. I didn't mean to. Yeah, it's all okay, Fluttercry. The distraught Earth Pony shot her hair, growing increasingly ragged the more she ranted. You ruined the most important night of the year, but that's okay because you had good intentions. Hey, leave her alone! Rainbow spoke with her trademark tenacity, landing between her friends and Octavia with an intimidating slam. What makes you so great? What? No, no, no! What makes you so great? Pestering the Wonderbolts like an obsessed fan filly? Get a life, Rainbow Dash, and stop chasing a school filly's dream of joining them. Maybe if you didn't crash all the time, they'd let you try out. No, they give you an invitation to tryouts. The hot-headed Pegasus seethed, feeling tears prickling in the back of her eyes. Octavia whipped her head back and laughed maniacally. On the sidelines, Vinyl and Ditzy shared a bucket of popcorn while spectating the entertainment. I love a good drama, the wall-eyed pony muttered wistfully, engrossed by the events playing out. Vinyl respectfully disagreed. I'm more into action flicks. Can't wait for the new Transformers this summer. Octavia paced back and forth, keeping her crazed eyes on the group of friends. Each one of them displayed mixed faces of hostility and sadness. Now I have to live here with vinyl blasting her wub wub crap all damn day, and I got a job flipping veggie burgers at Cecil's Bucking Bar and Grill. Yeah, that's just the life I want. With a quivering lip, Twilight softly said to the broken down pony, I'm sorry, Miss Octavia! I'm bloody Octavia! Former first chair cellist for the Royal Canterlot Symphony! I'm sorry, the studio mayor said, heavy-hearted. I'm sorry about all of this. But we can help, really. Would you stop screaming? An all too familiar entity quipped from behind Octavia. I bet if I was in space, I'd still be able to hear your little sob story. The 8 ponies slowly shifted their gaze to a familiar blood-coated mare sitting in an equally slop-covered wheelchair with a white little filly resting on her lap eating a cookie. Oh, and by the way, hear that? It's the world's smallest violin. Like a switch, Octavia instantly snapped back into her high-class demeanor. Even her hair magically combed itself in place, giving her mane its prim and proper appearance once more. Hi, Rarity! GLaDOS gave me a cookie! Sweetie happily nibbled on her treat as Rarity galloped over and swept her off GLaDOS's lap. Oh, Sweetie Belle! Rarity cried into her sister's curled mane. You're okay! Of course I am, the filly claimed, just as her sibling began checking her body for anything out of the ordinary. GLaDOS saved me! She's so cool, I think I want to be a scientist when I grow up. Excellent, GLaDOS spoke up. You may have a bright future ahead of you yet. 8 mares stared at GLaDOS, baffled. Twilight was beyond speechless. Instead of rejoicing, she was utterly appalled. What? Why are you covered in blood? What happened? Fluttershy lost consciousness at the very sight. GLaDOS dramatically looked up into the sky and whispered, Science. No, I mean it, the unicorn demanded sternly. What happened? Instead of answering a fool's question, GLaDOS backed up into her house and retrieved a fairly hefty packet. She lazily tossed it to Twilight, who caught it with her magic. These are viable notes on the biology, psychology, and behaviors of cockatrices. Well, this subgroup at least. Jaw dropped, Twilight flipped through the packet as GLaDOS continued. It's a whole 10-page report on the creature, including diagrams of its insides and how its powers of petrification work. Basically, I did 10 years of research in just under an hour. Sloppy to say the least. The unicorn's friends were now leaning over her shoulder, their eyes growing comically wider as they delved deeper into the packet. GLaDOS, Twilight breathed. You've just made a huge breakthrough for all of pony kind. This is invaluable information. I've got to send this to the princess. Wait, I don't get it, Rainbow inquired. If that's what I think it is, she pointed a quivering hoof at GLaDOS's encrusted form, then how'd you turn Sweetie Belle back to normal? It's quite simple, really, the seated pony explained. The gas found in its secondary stomach is flammable at high temperatures, so that's how fire cockatrices are made, Twilight asked eagerly, though backed down when everyone began to stare. Anyway, I had an idea. I sliced open the cockatrice's eyes and found those sort of contact lenses that serve as amplifiers for its stare. While conducting this, I found out the eyes are still in effect even after death. Anyone want to free a squirrel statue? Fluttershy, who just regained consciousness, was out cold once more. But how? GLaDOS asked rhetorically. They're not connected to the brain, thus the cockatrice is actually blind and travels via a heightened sense of smell and hearing, making this disability near obsolete. Anyway, I crushed the lenses into a fine paste and mixed it with the substance found within the stomach's grindstones. So I guessed that the two petrifying mixtures would cause both effects to cancel out, and extreme heat would create a new element altogether. That makes no sense! Rainbow yelled, bewildered. Honestly, I was just throwing science at the wall with this one. Some part of my brain told me this would work. Anyway, I heated the mixture up, rubbed it on the statue's surface, prayed to science that this would work, and voila, the baby equine is no longer fit for shovel coal. Have fun freezing this winter. Rarity, ignoring GLaDOS's vulgar comment, approached her with gratification. Sweetie Belle was curled up in a ball on her back, snoring softly. GLaDOS, I wanted to thank you for saving my sister. You put your life at risk to save hers. GLaDOS fought every instinct to say that it was just for science. And don't tell Twilight I said this, she whispered surreptitiously. But I think she had no idea how to fix this. Rarity lightly chuckled, then slipped back into a friendly but serious tone. But really, I'd like to make it up to you sometime. The science mare gave a single nod in recognition. And I don't think I forgot about my poor hoof, she hissed. GLaDOS blinked slowly, unthreatened by Rarity's hollow threats. Honestly, she was exhausted, dirty, and sore in at least 3 different places. And clean yourself up, the fashionista snapped before walking off, returning to the boutique after saying her goodbyes to her friends. Rainbow flew up to GLaDOS and playfully punched her in the shoulder. You know, you're all right, GLaDOS. You're not the insane, cold-hearted pony I thought you were. That's an understatement, she muttered beyond the winged pony's range of hearing. Well, that's all I gotta say. Catch you later. Come on, Ditzy. Well, that's all I gotta say. Catch you later. Come on, Ditzy, she motioned to the cross-eyed Pegasus, who joined her in the air. We gotta clear the clouds before Mr. Stratosphere fires us. Okay? Ditzy didn't question Rainbow's ambitions, even though she had full knowledge that Ditzy was a male mare, not a weather pony. See you later, GLaDOS, she called before taking off with the sky-blue Pegasus. Now was the time for Octavia to step up. Pinkie Pie? The addressed pony kept her distance from the group during this conversation. She slowly turned with a sniffle, wanting to be eschewed from this pony's life more than she already is. Octavia took a deep breath and spoke in a quick-paced manner. Neither you nor your friends ruined the gala. Even the snootiest of Canterloins found it to be quite the show. You did not ruin my life. My boss actually loves the Pony Pokey. I do not actually live in Ponyville, but I am just staying with Vinyl because my house is being fumigated, and no, I do not hate you or your friends. I barely even know you. She broke into a panting mess after such a long-winded explanation. Pinkie Pie's face broke into a wide smile. Her body rattled into a violent spasm reminiscent of a highly carbonated beverage ready to explode. Like a rocket, she blasted off into the air, leaving only a pink-pigmented trail of sparkles in her wake. GLaDOS's jaw dropped at the sheer impossibility of what she had just witnessed. Octavia laughed. Well, I can see she's happy. Uh-huh, was all the physics-driven pony could utter, still baffled by the impossible display. The musician and her cousin began their march down the trail leading to Ponyville. Before departing, she told her friend, "It's like I said before, I'll do whatever it takes to get the job done. If you ever need help again or just want to chat, let me know." Uh-huh. Now it was just Twilight and Fluttershy. The lilac pony went up first, practically sputtering with excitement from the information GLaDOS recorded. "Do you know how much money you'll make? This could be the finding of the century." Money? I could always use more kindle for the fireplace. Yeah, I know, and I don't care. Keep your money. I just wanted a chance to test again. GLaDOS scratched her chin, causing flakes of dried blood to flutter to the ground like snow. Twilight grinned sheepishly, knowing she just made a complete fool of herself. "Sorry, but this is just way too big to ignore. And GLaDOS," she addressed dolefully, "I'm sorry I misjudged you. You know, I think there's some good in you after all. Anyway, I've got to send this letter to Princess Celestia and tell her what you did." The mare closed her eyes and turned away as if she was refusing a gift. "No, I'm not trustworthy. I'm dangerous. Never come back. I don't want you or your friends here. I'd like to be alone." When she opened her eyes, Twilight was gone without a trace. She presumably teleported to Princess Celestia to turn in the report personally. Wow. With my background and my love for science, me labeling someone as a nerd would be inappropriate and quite immature. But in all seriousness, Twilight Sparkle is the biggest dork I've ever laid eyes on. I mean, yeah, Wheatley's a dork, but there's a certain charm to him that you just can't ignore. Even if he is a complete and utter moron. Perhaps Twilight and I could form a certain bond. Yeah, and we could create all kinds of inventions and tests. But sadly, that'll only be a reality when pigs fly. In my world, not this one, because I'm not sure if pigs actually fly here. And I don't want to get caught in a loophole like, GLaDOS. A meek voice penetrated GLaDOS's thoughts. Oh yeah, Fluttershy. What, She was hesitant, growing even more anxious as the seconds ticked by. What did you do with the, cockatrice? I mean, she laughed sheepishly. I mean, that red science mixture looks an awful like blood and... Ah, yes, Fluttershy. My reward for holding that cockatrice of yours. You promised. GLaDOS spoke with such surprise, almost letting the favor slip her mind. She rolled back into her house to retrieve something special. For the memory, she'd say. Oh, okay. The unassertive Pegasus squeaked, dismissing the question she had prior to her interruption. GLaDOS returned and tossed the gory remains of the cockatrice onto Fluttershy. Yeah, could you find a taxidermist for me? I have just the perfect place for it in my bedroom. Fluttershy's head poked out of the pile of cut up and dissected entrails. She took one look at the mess around her and let out a blood-curdling scream. Oh, and clean yourself up. You look like you were baked into a Mrs. Lovett's meat pie. She shut her door, leaving poor innocent Fluttershy alone in a horrified shock, covered head to hoof in blood and guts. Next time, disturbing possibilities, the side effects of insomnia. GLaDOS's lack of sleep may very well lead to the destruction of Equestria.